This farm has everything that wildlife needs. A place to eat, a place to go for safety, a place to raise a family. Working with your fields and pastures, you can use practices shown in this video to provide better wildlife habitat, to conserve soil and water, and to improve livestock production. Viewing this video is your first step to improving wildlife habitat and grasslands on your farm. The next step will be to call your private lands biologist to develop a wildlife plan for your farm. The biologist can talk with you about the various wildlife and farm programs available to help you with your habitat work. The numbers of bobwhite quail and many other grassland species have been on a long-term decline over the past 30 years due to land use changes and habitat loss. By using the practices shown in this video, you can help these animals recover. Whether you're a large-scale livestock producer, a small hobby farmer, or somewhere in between, this video, along with the advice of a wildlife biologist, can help you get the most out of your farm. The grasslands of Kentucky once were very different than they are today. Vast fields of native plants provided a constantly renewable source of forage for elk and buffalo. Fields of native prairie grasses, also called native clump grasses or warm season grasses, provided perfect habitat for quail and grassland songbird nesting. These native plant communities evolved over millions of years and were adapted to the region's weather and soils. What's more, the grassland wildlife of Kentucky evolved with and do best in such native prairie areas. Since European settlement, these open lands and other newly cleared areas have undergone drastic change. As settlement progressed, pioneer farmers unknowingly overgrazed their fields. They replaced native grasses with their own quick-growing varieties imported from the Old World. Slowly, imported European grasses took root in American soil and in American farming culture. These grasses include timothy, orchard grass, bluegrass, and redtop, all referred to as cool season grasses since they actively grow in the cool parts of the year, namely spring and fall. Another cool season grass called tall fescue was also introduced from Europe. Soon thereafter, the University of Kentucky began developing different varieties. In 1943, the variety dubbed Kentucky 31 tall fescue went on sale commercially. By the mid-1980s, Kentucky 31 tall fescue had been planted on many of the pastures, haylands, roadsides, and fields of the South and Midwest. Nearly 7 million acres of Kentucky's grasslands had been planted in tall fescue by that time. Fescue's ease of establishment and low maintenance allowed it to grow virtually anywhere. Scientists and farmers alike saw tall fescue as a quick and easy way to make durable pasture land. Fescue became the grass of choice for pastures, haylands, turf, and erosion control. Recently, though, we've discovered fescue also has some problems. Especially important to farmers is the fact that fescue provides very poor summer grazing. Being a cool season grass, it grows very little in the heat of summer and provides little nourishment during that time. More importantly, scientists have discovered that fescue is a much lower quality forage than was thought in the past. Nearly all Kentucky 31 tall fescue is infected with a fungus. This fungus, called an endophyte, lives inside the fescue plant. The endophyte actually creates toxins in the fescue that lead to all kinds of problems in livestock and wildlife. In livestock, it causes the condition referred to as fescue toxicosis or summer syndrome. You've probably seen cattle standing in ponds on hot summer days. Normal summer heat stress on cattle is compounded by using fescue. In summer syndrome, the infected fescue elevates the animal's body temperature. If cattle feed on grasses other than fescue, they may spend less time cooling off and more time grazing. That means more weight gain through the summer and more money at the market. Though this may sound minor, the effects of fescue toxicosis can be quite serious. Common problems associated with endophyte-infected fescue include loss of appetite and body weight, lowered milk production, fertility problems, and even absorption of fetuses. By some estimates, summer syndrome costs the livestock industry almost $1 billion each year. Fescue also poses problems as wildlife habitat. Dense mats of fescue prevent other, more beneficial plants from growing. You're left with a stand of grass dominated by fescue. Wildlife does best in areas with a wide variety of different plants. Fescue takes over areas where it grows and suppresses other more beneficial vegetation. The tendency of fescue to form thick tangled mats also makes it difficult for wildlife to travel through. If large animals such as deer have difficulty walking through fescue fields, imagine what it must be like for a 2-inch tall quail chick. Native prairie grasses, which grow in clumps, allow easy movement between plants. This is why they provide such good brood-rearing habitat for grassland songbirds and quail. Fescue, on the other hand, has little value as habitat for these birds. Lastly, the fescue plant is thin and weak. Snow and ice easily flatten fields of fescue. This makes fescue very poor winter cover for wildlife. Native clump grasses are much thicker and stronger. These native grasses can stand up in deep snow, leaving open ground spaces below for small wildlife to seek cover and food. The durable seed heads of these native grasses are also an important winter food source for wildlife. This brings us to the topic of replacing unwanted fescue. Unfortunately, fescue is very hardy and somewhat difficult to kill, but with a bit of patience, fescue can be successfully replaced with more beneficial grasses, wildflowers, and legumes. Some common legumes are red clover, white clover, and alfalfa. The basic techniques for getting rid of fescue don't require lots of equipment, money, or work. The 3 main methods of killing fescue are prescribed burning, herbicide, and tillage, which is plowing or disking. And remember, plans to kill and replace fescue are very flexible, and they can be adapted to the landowner's desires and budget. To save money, some equipment may be borrowed from state agencies or local conservation organizations.
It's not that expensive. You know, your extension agent, most counties, has a pasture renovator. That's what we used here today to put our sorghum in the ground. And as far as the spray rig, I got that from the Fish and Wildlife Department. So they, you know, I don't have anything but a little bit of money and chemical, and I feel like by promoting the wildlife and the habitat for them, that I'm doing something to promote, to help the value of my land.
There are several approaches to getting rid of fescue. Best results come from the most intensive fescue disturbance. 2 primary ways to get rid of fescue are herbicide application and bottom plowing. Combining the 2 techniques provides the best results of all. The preferred method of killing off fescue begins with removing the dead fescue stems. These dry stems and other ground litter are referred to as duff. Do this with prescribed burning in late winter, then follow up with herbicide in the spring. Remember, before using fire as a management tool, contact your wildlife biologist for guidance. Next, use conventional tillage, such as plowing, disking, or rototilling to prepare the seed bed. You can also get excellent results by burning, spraying, and then no-till planting a grass forb mix. Generally speaking, forbs are wildflowers and legumes, which are excellent food for cattle and wildlife. In many places, soil erosion can be a problem. Where this is the case, conventional tillage should be avoided. However, in erodible areas, conventional tillage can be done in successive strips on the contour. This helps prevent erosion. Fields tilled this way may require several growing seasons for total change to native vegetation. Plowing and disking are also good ways to get rid of unwanted fescue. Plus, these practices have one obvious advantage over spraying: they're much cheaper. The plowing disking option is also valuable for another reason. Besides reducing fescue, the intense soil disturbance stimulates plants that are better for wildlife and cattle. Spraying, on the other hand, requires less time from the landowner and reduces erosion problems. Low-volume spraying allows you to use less chemical to get good results. By using high-pressure sprayers with flat fan nozzles, you need only 10 gallons of solution per acre. You can also contract out custom spraying. Remember, as with all herbicide use, timing of the application is critical. Fescue should be sprayed when it's actively growing and about 8 inches to a foot tall. This is when fescue is most vulnerable to herbicides. In Kentucky, this is usually in April to early May in the spring and mid-September to mid-October in autumn. And you should avoid spraying in dry spells that have slowed fescue growth. If the field being sprayed has been regularly used for grazing, remember to wait until the grass is at least 8 inches high and actively growing before you spray. Removing cattle or cutting hay about 2 weeks before spraying generally allows for this. In fallow fields, it's advisable to mow 2 to 3 weeks before spraying. For best results, rake and bale mowed areas to remove the duff. This ensures good herbicide contact with the fescue. Burning can be used in place of mowing and offers even better results. However, a burned field will require 3 to 6 weeks regrowth time before the fescue is ready to spray. There are many herbicides available to control fescue. Two of the most common chemicals used are glyphosate and imidazolinone. They can be used individually or tank mixed. Both require the use of a surfactant, which helps the herbicide work. Also, adding a nitrogen-based liquid fertilizer will stimulate fescue growth, resulting in a better kill. Here's an example of a common glyphosate mixture. For 1 acre, add 1 to 2 quarts of a glyphosate herbicide, such as Roundup, to 10 gallons of water and 6 ounces of surfactant. Follow-up spot spraying of problem areas can usually be done at a reduced rate of about 1 quart of Roundup to 10 gallons of water. An imidazolinone herbicide recently introduced and growing in popularity is Plateau. It has an added benefit over glyphosate herbicides by its ability to remain active in the soil for up to 45 days. Plus, it can kill other weeds besides fescue that may compete with the native grasses you're trying to grow. Plateau is a pre- and post-emergent herbicide which promotes quicker establishment of native grasses. Depending on the amount of fescue and other weeds, you only need to use 4 to 12 ounces of Plateau per acre. The following is a suggested imidazolinone mixture. For 1 acre, add 12 ounces of an imidazolinone herbicide, such as Plateau, to 2 pints of methylated seed oil and 10 gallons of water. However, since imidazolinone chemicals such as Plateau are pre-emergent as well as post-emergent herbicides, they should not be used when establishing cool season plants such as orchard grass and clover. Landowners can choose from several safe and effective herbicides. Check the chemical label on the container for uses and precautions. Contact your wildlife biologist for the most current information about replacing fescue with plants better for wildlife. Whether you choose to spray or plow, perhaps the most critical stage of fescue control comes after the first step. Killing an existing stand of fescue is easy. Keeping fescue from coming back may take a little more work. On most farms, enough fescue volunteers in that after a couple of years, fescue will be on its way to once again taking over the field. Several steps can help keep this from happening. First, consider using what's called a smother crop. A smother crop is usually a small grain such as wheat, oats, or millet. It's planted densely enough to shade out and suppress fescue seedlings. As an added bonus, smother cropping may allow you to incorporate a field for dove hunting into your fescue replacement program. Crops such as soybeans or native prairie grasses can also be useful since they allow the use of selective herbicides. For quail, it isn't necessary to plant anything after the fescue is killed. High-quality plants like ragweed, foxtail, and annual lespedezas will volunteer into the newly opened area the first year. These plants provide excellent brood-rearing habitat for quail. The large areas of bare ground between plants allow easy foraging by young quail chicks. In following years, more grasses will volunteer in and produce even better nesting and brood-rearing habitat. However, if the land is plowed, planting cover crops can be very important to stop erosion, especially in hilly areas. Fescue will try to come back, so whether or not you choose to plant crops, spot spraying each spring or fall for the next several years is critical. Plateau herbicide or similar imidazolinone products will kill undesirable plants, but not native grasses. Replowing or respraying the entire field after 2 growing seasons should be considered if fescue is widely scattered in the field and has reached about 30% coverage. Remember, you don't have to keep all the fescue out of the field. The real goal is just to keep it suppressed. A little attention each year is the key to keeping fescue controlled. This keeps you from having to repeat extensive spraying or plowing. 2 practices to avoid the first 2 or 3 years after the initial control are fall disking and late winter burning. These practices can increase the amount of fescue if used improperly. Once fescue has been successfully killed out, what can landowners use as a better alternative for year-round wildlife habitat or livestock forage? Well, farmers can plant a combination cool season grass legume mixture and a warm season grass forb mixture. Cool season grasses grow during the cool parts of the year, spring and fall, whereas warm season grasses grow during summer. Fields with both types of grasses ensure diverse wildlife habitat for year-round benefits. A rotational grazing program of warm and cool season grasses provides better forage and weight gains for livestock. Recent tests have shown that pastures with a combination of both warm and cool season grasses provided annual weight gains of 70 pounds per head over pastures of only cool season grasses such as fescue. This is because all grasses attain their highest protein levels when actively growing. Livestock would feed on cool season pastures in the spring and fall while these grasses are in rapid growth. Then they would graze the warm season grasses during the summer when these grasses are most actively growing. During the summer period, native grass stands provide far better weight gains for livestock than fescue due to their higher protein levels. Two excellent cool season grass legume mixtures are as follows: orchard grass, white clover, red clover, and Korean lespedeza, or orchard grass, timothy, white clover, and red clover. It's best to plant these in similar mixtures in the spring, but you can plant them in August and September if you eliminate Korean lespedeza and overseed it the following February or March. These plants establish easily and quickly. Fields should be maintained with periodic rotational mowing. These cool season mixtures provide good cover, nesting, and brood rearing habitat. By the way, rotational mowing means not mowing the entire field in any given year. Instead, you divide up a field into sections and mow a different section in each successive year. This allows different sections of the field to contain different aged grass communities, which are more beneficial to wildlife than an even age stand. For instance, in a 3-section field, each section would be mowed only once every 3 years. This not only benefits wildlife, but also saves on tractor time, diesel, and still maintains your open areas. A good all-round warm season grass wildflower legume mixture provides excellent wildlife habitat. Here's an example: Indian grass, big blue stem, little blue stem, switchgrass, side oats grama, and wildflowers and legumes. For those primarily interested in hay production or livestock grazing, the following mixes work well: Indian grass and big blue stem, or eastern gamma grass and switchgrass. It's best to plant these in similar mixtures in late spring to early summer using a special grass drill. These grass seeds have very fine hair and appendages that prevent the use of conventional seeders. Eastern gamma grass can be planted using a corn seeder. Switchgrass can be planted using a pasture renovator. For more information on warm season grass drills and arranging to use one, contact your wildlife biologist. Now that you know what to plant, the question is how best to plant the seed. Despite what you plant, there are essentially 2 methods. One is conventional tillage, that is, plowing the ground, disking, leveling, broadcasting the seed, and covering with soil. This type of tillage is fine for level ground areas where erosion is not a major concern. The other option is called no-till farming. In no-till, a piece of equipment cuts the ground, plants the seed, and closes the furrow all in one pass. This method is perfect for erodible lands. Since the ground is not broken up as with disking and plowing, there's very little soil erosion in no-till fields. In addition, no-till is cheap, quick, and easy. Warm season grasses cost more than cool season grasses to establish, but once established, warm season grasses provide a permanent and easily maintained high-quality grass stand. Maintain your warm season grass fields by strip mowing, strip disking, prescribed grazing, using selective herbicides, and prescribed burning. In fact, fire is one of the most economical tools used to maintain warm season grass stands. Burning removes ground litter, stimulates legumes, invigorates grasses, and controls woody growth. Your wildlife biologist can provide more information and assistance on prescribed burning. It's important that warm season grasses not be grazed below 8 inches unless allowed to grow back to at least 8 inches before winter. Overgrazing not only reduces the health of the stand, it also reduces the wildlife benefits of warm season grasses. For example, when not overgrazed, native grasses provide excellent winter cover for small game, songbirds, and other small mammals. Since they grow in clumps, these grasses hold up well under snow, providing places for small wildlife to feed and seek refuge from the elements. By properly alternating cattle from cool to warm season pastures in a rotational grazing system, farmers can maximize their livestock's nutrition. Properly rotated and fenced fields will be grazed less and maintain better overall condition. Farmers can also profit by fencing cattle off from woodlots and stream sides. Livestock allowed to run freely in streams and woodlots trample and eat plants that stabilize the soil, reduce downstream flooding, and prevent erosion. Cattle in streams cause a great deal of damage to aquatic creatures and their habitats. They increase the amount of silt in the water, destroy fish spawning areas, and decrease the amount of organisms on which fish feed. Fencing off woodlots allows trees to grow, providing future timber value for the area. Many programs offer cost-share opportunities to offset the price of fencing livestock away from streams and woodlots and creating alternate water sources. The practice of clean farming, while it might look nice, is actually bad for wildlife. Instead of time-consuming mowing or planting in marginal areas, you can benefit wildlife by allowing some portions of your farm to grow up. There are a number of these other important open land components which are often overlooked. Such areas include field borders, travel corridors, filter strips, grassed waterways, shrub plantings, and odd areas. Ideally, try to allow a width of 30 or more feet in these areas for the best wildlife benefits and to improve water quality and control erosion. These practices will improve wildlife habitat when coupled with fescue replacement and a wildlife-friendly mowing program. By wildlife-friendly, we mean try to avoid mowing from April through early August. During this time, quail and other ground-nesting birds need undisturbed grass stands for nesting and brood-rearing habitat. Field borders are strips of unmowed grassy areas or shrubs along a field or forest edge. These areas can be maintained by rotational mowing, disking, or prescribed burning every 3 to 5 years. Travel corridors are areas that use mowing patterns or shrub plantings to provide escape cover, resting areas, and movement routes for a variety of wildlife. A good example of a travel corridor is a fence row that has been allowed to grow wild to a width of about 30 feet. Simply walking away from an area and letting it grow up, or planting desirable grasses and shrubs can create travel corridors. As with field borders, travel corridors can be periodically mowed, disked, sprayed, or burned to maintain the beneficial early growth stage.
We're going to kill this off along this fence row and let it naturally regenerate to give the rabbits and the quail and all these animals, a good habitat along the fence row. And that's not really using any type of productive land.
A lot of these things don't have to be, you don't have to sacrifice a whole lot of your land for, and that the example of that is like the border that we put around this fence row.
Filter strips benefit both landowners and wildlife. Filter strips are narrow bands of grass placed to slow runoff and trap soil and nutrients from agricultural areas. Besides reducing erosion and conserving soil, these strips provide cover and nesting habitat for a variety of wildlife. Two excellent choices for filter strip plantings are redtop and native warm season grasses. Grassed waterways are strips of grass established along the natural drainage of a field. These areas prevent the formation of gullies. They act as filter strips and provide cover and nesting habitat for many animals. Two excellent choices for grassed waterway plantings are, once again, redtop and native prairie grasses. In particular, switchgrass is especially suited for this due to its high water tolerance and quick establishment. Shrub plantings improve escape and nesting cover. They also provide a good food source for wildlife. Shrubs such as dogwoods, wild plum, and hawthorns provide soft mast for many animals. These shrubs do best when planted in clumps. Odd area development is allowing plants good for wildlife to grow in the unused portions of your farm. You can either plant these or allow natural succession to take over. Some examples of odd areas that can be managed this way are gullies, field corners, and steep slopes. One question asked a lot is, I have a field, why not just plant it in a food plot of corn or soybeans? Isn't this better for wildlife? Simply put, no. In Kentucky, food is usually not a problem for wildlife. Rather, the problem is a lack of good habitat for nesting, brood rearing, winter cover, and escape cover. food plots often use up space that would better serve wildlife as some type of permanent year-round habitat instead of a short-lived, limited-use food plot. There is an exception to this rule, that is, using a grain as a smother crop in a fescue conversion program. This type of food plot is a good way to suppress fescue from coming back in a field recently eradicated of it. Using a food plot in this way is a good step towards establishing permanent, useful wildlife habitat. We recommend only creating small food plots, generally 1/4 to 1/2 acre in size next to permanent cover. A good rule of thumb is 1 acre of food plot per 50 acres of land. For best results with food plots, they should be rotated and allowed to go fallow for at least 2 years before being planted again. The first year provides food in the form of grains and weed seeds. The second year, weeds valuable to wildlife will begin to grow in the bare ground areas between rows, offering brood-rearing habitat. In the third year, diverse plant growth offers prime nesting habitat for birds such as quail. This subsequent weed growth is as important to wildlife as the grains originally planted. The key to successfully using food plots is making sure to integrate them into an overall wildlife management plan for your farm. These techniques for improving your open lands vary from low budget to significant investments, but can be tailored to your individual needs and equipment availability. Many landowners do not own farming equipment. However, there are sources for renting tractors and implements. Also, many agencies or conservation organizations lend out specialized equipment such as warm-season grass drills and herbicide sprayers. You can begin the process by contacting your local biologist to help make a plan for your farm. Remember, it costs you nothing to get a farm plan, and there's no obligation if you decide not to follow it.
We have a working cattle operation here, as well as a great place to hunt, and to me, you get both benefits while letting Fish and Wildlife help you pay for it. You can have them come out and give you a farm plan, and you can do all or none of it, and it doesn't cost you a thing. The bottom line is it costs you nothing to see what the program is about, and I would just encourage everyone to look into it and try it, and if you don't like it, don't do it.
This video should help you start improving your land for wildlife while getting the most out of your haylands and pastures. These practices can help the farmer, livestock producer, and the wildlife enthusiast. Remember, you can manage your land in ways to maximize both the agricultural and wildlife benefits. Then, your farm too can have all those things that wildlife need. The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources can help with your habitat management program. If you'd like more information concerning Farm Bill programs, the Habitat Improvement Program, Backyard Wildlife Habitat Kits, the Kentucky Private Lands Council Summary of Assistance Programs booklet, Kentucky Business Conservation Partnerships, or Regional Private Lands Wildlife Biologist, contact the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources at the toll-free number 1-800-858-1549 or write to KDFWR, number 1 Game Farm Road, Frankfort, Kentucky 40601.